Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening from New York. Um, I'm flying a little bit blind because I'm not totally certain that what you're seeing is what I'm seeing. But this is, um, my name is Leonard. I'm a programmer and a science fiction writer. On the left, I put a picture of what I look like now. So even though we don't have video, you can visualize the guy who's talking to you. And on the right is what I looked like 20 years ago. So you can visualize the guy who wrote Robot Finds Kitten. For those who are not familiar, Robot Finds Kitten is a very simple roguelike game where you are a robot represented by a gray hash mark on the left, and you're trying to find Kitten represented by a mystery character somewhere on the board. The game takes place in a featureless field full of mystery characters, most of which are not Kitten, seen on the bottom right and everywhere on this screenshot. You play the game by moving robot around in roguelike style, bumping into things. Bumping into something that's not Kitten will get you some kind of weird message like it's a prosthetic wheel bent out of shape, or 100,000 carpet fibers. But when you bump into Kitten, it says you've found Kitten. Way to go, robot. You get a cute animation with the hash mark and the mystery character, and you've won the game. Now, today, I am proud to say I'm pretty good at computer programming. But 20 years ago, I was not so good. I had about 1 year of real experience, mostly in the form of college courses. And today, I would say I am not good at game design. And in 1997, I was even worse at game design. And on top of that, in 1997, I wrote Robot Finds Kitten in about 3 days to meet a contest deadline. Now, despite this inauspicious beginning, Robot Finds Kitten is a very successful game. There's over 50 ports to different programming languages and platforms. It's become a kind of folk game like Snake or Conway's Life. And perhaps it's a tribute to my own healthy self-regard that until I started researching this talk, I never asked the question that has become the topic. How did someone who's bad at game design and bad at computer programming make a computer game that's really good? I'm comfortable saying The Robot Finds Kitten is a really good game. And if you're not a game designer, I'm here. I'm living proof that you can create a fun game without being a game designer. And after thinking about this question on the screen, I have an answer which might interest the people here who are game designers. The short answer is that I made a game about parts of early roguelikes that are often regarded as misfeatures or missteps. I stole ideas from these early roguelikes that, quote, real designers generally don't steal. The rest of this talk is a longer answer to that question in 3 parts. Thus begins part 1. I don't have any money writing on this or anything, but I think Robot Finds Kitten might be the simplest interesting roguelike game. It has a lot of the features you find in traditional roguelikes, but the one that's important to this talk is that it was directly inspired by Rogue. Let's go back to 1987, 10 years before Robot Finds Kitten. My dad brings an IBM PC home for his work, and he also brings a bunch of pirated games for me to play. These are not really the games that people were pirating in 1987 because our PC didn't have a graphics card. And so most of the pirated games are pretty bad, but 2 of them are really, really good. Infocom's Planetfall, Text Adventure, and John Lane's DOS version of Rogue. The first version of Robot Finds Kitten was written for MS-DOS, and as you can see, I subconsciously designed it to resemble Rogue for MS-DOS. In fact, I designed it to capture a specific thing I loved about the DOS version of Rogue. It's something that may seem silly now. Here's a detail from a DOS Rogue screenshot. There are 3 bits of this screenshot, 3 individual characters I want to draw your attention to. The first one is the capital H. Now, most roguelike fans know the magic of the H. At the top of the screen, an H is a letter in a word like hello. It's part of a status message. But in the middle of the screen, that H becomes a monster, a deadly hobgoblin. There's a school of thought that says this H is a relic of the past, that you should replace it with a realistic tile depicting a hobgoblin, whatever a realistic hobgoblin looks like. But when I was a kid, I loved this. I was so happy every time I got far enough into Rogue that I could see a new letter which would immediately kill me. I recognized H equals hobgoblin. It was the same kind of imaginary play where I'd imagined that my bedroom was a spaceship. Second item, the happy face, DOS Rogue's equivalent of the @ sign. We all know what a happy face is, but it's not a letter of the alphabet. The IBM PC can't draw a realistic hobgoblin the way an arcade machine could, but it can draw a happy face. That's a little weird. What else can this thing draw? Well, this is how DOS Rogue represents a doorway. What even is this thing? In 1993, this character was added to Unicode, and they called it Box Drawings Double Vertical and Horizontal. I can't find an earlier name for it. It's this nameless symbol that they added to MS-DOS so a computer program could draw it next to the letter H in the happy face. And this is the space that Robot Finds Kitten plays in, the thrill of playing a roguelike for the first time and touching things to find out what the character is. And the thrill of playing an MS-DOS game for the first time and learning about this secret alphabet hidden within the beige box of an IBM PC. Now, I know that it's often a pain to have to remember whether a lowercase c is a cockatrice or a cat or a cranberry. It's not really thought of as a desirable feature of roguelikes. I'm not even saying I like this ambiguity, but Robot Finds Kitten is a game that's based around finding the fun in a type of mystery that is exclusive to roguelikes. By the way, before we go to part 2, Robot Finds Kitten also contains something from Planetfall, the other game that made a huge childhood impression on me. I wanted to make a game with a curious robot who doesn't die. Let's move on, fast forward through my childhood and get here to 1991, where I bought a freeware floppy disk that had Nethack 3.0.0 on it. I don't think I knew what I was getting. I think I just liked those two words, net and hack, and having them next to each other made it irresistible. But once I had it, it was like a message to me from the grown-up world. Somebody else had played Rogue, had loved it as much as I had, so much that they'd made their own game that was just like Rogue but had more stuff. I spent the years leading up to Robot Finds Kitten with Nethack. DOS Rogue had a few mysterious things hidden in the corners, but Nethack seemed to be all corners, all hidden things. Most importantly, for purposes of this talk, are the rumor messages, short pieces of advice that you find inside fortune cookies. These rumors and the style they were written in dramatically expanded my vision of what could go into a computer game. That's because some of the rumors are false, completely made up, having nothing to do with the real rumors, not knowing they were false. I love speculating about what they might mean. And now that I know they're false, I love them more than the real rumors. False rumors dramatically expand the possibility of what might be going on in Nethack. They fire the imagination and create more opportunities for imaginative play. There's one fortune cookie that says, "Ever tried enchanting a rope?" Oh, you haven't tried enchanting a rope in Nethack because there are no ropes. Implementing a rope would be a huge pain, but adding one line of text is free, and it gives the player a little thrill to imagine what a rope would be like in Nethack. These rumors, especially the false ones, are the second big inspiration for Robot Finds Kitten. That's where I got the idea of a big list of short, weird pieces of text shown at the top of the screen. The other feature of Nethack that stuck with me is the list of monsters you only see when you're hallucinating. A boring monster like a rat might appear as a ravenous bug bladder beast or a Venus flytrap or Godzilla. You'd look at a monster and see something just totally random. You don't know what you're fighting. When I was stricken with hallucination in Nethack, I would look at the same monster over and over again, enjoying all the things that a capital H isn't. One of my favorite Robot Finds Kitten tributes is that Kitten Prospecting Robot is now one of the official Nethack hallucination monsters. Now, you competent game designers in the audience may think that huge lists of fake spoilers and non-existent monsters are what makes Nethack bloated, and you are probably right. Maybe these are not desirable features in normal games, but I love this stuff. And the fact that other people like Robot Finds Kitten indicates there's a whole other type of game that's not made very often, where this kind of thing isn't bloat at all, where this is the main point of a game that gives you glimpses into a variety of different worlds. I'm going to fast forward again, all the way to 2011. Let me introduce Mel Chua, a friend of mine who's a scholar of engineering education. I was talking to her in 2011, and I randomly learned that Mel got into computer programming through Robot Finds Kitten. Unlike me, Mel didn't really encounter computers until she entered high school around the year 2000. Her school had a couple of Red Hat Linux terminals that happened to have my Linux version of Robot Finds Kitten installed. She and her friends started playing it, and it became the basis for in-jokes. When someone accomplished something cool, they'd say, "You found Kitten, way to go, robot," like in the game end animation. A couple months later, some older students introduced Mel to computer programming. And when she was told that Robot Finds Kitten was open source software, she got really excited. It was one of the first programs she read and the first one she modified. She'd change the source to add in-jokes, recompile, and then go off to find a friend and make them play her new version. Exactly the sort of thing I'd done when I was writing Robot Finds Kitten originally. I'm just going to read this quote from her. Robot Finds Kitten was part of my computers are cool and, oh, hey, programming, I can do that formation story. Seeing that thrill of, hey, I can make things that make other people have these experiences, get other people to laugh, that was pretty big. End quote. Mel was able to use Robot Finds Kitten as a jumping off point because it's a really simple program that does something non-trivial but fun. The reason it's really simple is that I was a beginning programmer when I wrote it. I wasn't capable of anything more complicated. I think this shows why there are so many Robot Finds Kitten implementations. Even an experienced programmer goes into a beginner state when learning a new platform or a new programming language. Robot Finds Kitten is a good first real program to write. It's generally easier to write a new version of Robot Finds Kitten than to port someone else's version to another platform. In fact, I think the fullest way to enjoy Robot Finds Kitten is to write your own version of it. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of games from, quote, real game designers that expand upon the ideas I used in Robot Finds Kitten. These 50 ports, I'm very proud of them, but they're all more or less originally. Now, these aren't my ideas. I stole them from Rogue and Nethack. But the trend in roguelikes has been to move away from those parts of Rogue and Nethack and to emphasize other aspects instead. This is my plea to all of you here. I really enjoy games where fun comes from experiencing a variety of content rather than only engaging with the game world on a tactical level. Of the items in my wish list, this is the most common, but I'd always like to see more of this. The idea that a game can be intertextual, that it can refer to the texts of other games and to real world knowledge in ways that include but are not limited to in-jokes, this really appeals to me. So does the idea that a game can create mystery by misleading the player about its mechanisms, either by keeping certain things secret or by an unreliable narrator implying the existence of mechanisms that aren't there, like the rope in Nethack. I'm not a game designer, like I said, so I don't have the vocabulary to convince you that these are good ideas or that you should try them, even if they turn out to be bad. I just want to put the ideas in your head, ask you to go back and find the fun in concepts that have been neglected, even if it turns out they've been neglected for good reason. I'll close by pointing out that Robot Finds Kitten isn't the only game that has pulled this off. Back in 2009, Derek Yu made a hit by incorporating two of the least popular features of roguelikes, permadeath and extreme randomness, into a genre that was then unpopular. I'd like to see this happen again, and I don't think there's any reason it can't. Thanks for your time. I've put up last slide with some useful links, and I'll be putting up a transcript of this talk later. Thank you.
Thanks, Leonard. We're going to take a few questions if you want to answer them. Does that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Questions? Yeah.
To follow on, I guess, sort of the general thrust of your talk, what are the sort of least popular aspects of current games that you feel might be a rich and untapped source of joy for future gamers?
Can you repeat the question? There was some noise in here. So you're talking about the least popular aspect of current games?
Yeah, that you think are actually fertile source of future rich gaming.
One thing that I really dislike in current games is grinding and completionism, but I think because I dislike it so much, I think there's a rich vein to be mined there in either finding different angles on it or subverting it in different ways. And by completionism, maybe there's a technical term for this, but like the idea that you need to get all 64,000 bananas to get a achievement or something.
Among the non-kitten items in Robot Finds Kitten, are there any that you have a particular affection for or that have a story behind them that might not be obvious?
Yeah, I was expecting this question, but I did not prepare for it, unfortunately. if I can in the background answer a different question and then just grab a list really quick, I can answer your question in just a minute.
Sure. I have a question, which is, Robot Finds Kitten is about sort of the surprising things you found while playing other people's games. I'm wondering if you were ever then surprised by someone's reinterpretation of it or their port of it. Like, did you eventually find surprising things in your own game?
Um, I was surprised by the variety of platforms that could support this. I remember there was a conversation on the mailing list at one point where we decided that an Atari 2600 port was impossible because of the memory limitations, but somebody was able to do it. That was I was surprised by that. I was convinced you couldn't do it, but I was mainly convinced by listening to someone else's argument. I didn't come up with the argument myself.
Should we take another question, or do you want to answer the previous one?
I am looking at the original non-kitten items. There's one original. Yeah, there's one original one. It says it's called Daily Hunger Conditioner from Australasia, and I know where that came from. I don't know how it got to quote Daily Hunger Conditioner from Australasia, but it came from a bottle of hair conditioner that I saw in the shower, and I just took that idea of hair conditioner and changed words until it looked weird. I think the hair conditioner was from Australia. It had a kangaroo on it. Most of them either there is no story. It's just a random thing that I or someone else came up with, or the story is pretty obvious because it's a Monty Python reference or something. Actually, I'll tell a story. 100,000 carpet fibers. That's a reference to the novelization of the Goonies, which I read when I was a kid. And there's this, as often happens in novelizations of movies, the person doing the novelization has to put in all sorts of weird backstory that's not in the movie. And there's a backstory for one of the Goonies, I guess, that involves the phrase 100,000 toothpicks. And I was just thinking of that phrase, and in the purest lazy creative person move, I looked around the room and thought, well, what is there 100,000 of in here? And the answer was carpet fibers. So that's where 100,000 carpet fibers came from. It was me sort of filing the serial numbers off this joke in the novelization of the Goonies.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leonard.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the celebration.